विहारी जय गोपी जनवल्लभ जय गिरिवरधारी जय राधा माधव जय कुंज विहारी जय गोपी जनवल्लभ जय गिरिवरधारी यशोदानन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जन यशोदानन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जन यमुनातीरावनचारि यमुनातीरावनचारि जय राधमाधव जय कुंज विहारी जय राधा माधव जय कुंज विहारी जय गोपी जनवल्लभ जय गिरिवरधारी यशोदानन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जन यशोदानन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जन यमुनातीरावनचारि यमुनातीरावनचारि जय राधमाधव जय कुंज विहारी जय राधमाधव जय कुंज विहारी जय गोपी जनवल्लभ जय गिरिवरधारी यशोदानन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जन यशोदानन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जन यमुनातीरावनचारि यमुनातीरावनचारि जय राधमाधव जय कुंज विहारी जय राधमाधव जय कुंज विहारी जय गोपी जनवल्लभ जय गिरिवरधारी जय गोपी जनवल्लभ जय गिरिवरधारी यशोदानन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जन यशोदानन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जन यमुनातीरावनचारि यमुनातीरावनचारि हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे Hare Krishna everyone. Today we'll start today's verses from Canto 4, chapter 25, verse number 49. And before that, we will start with Prabhupada Leela Amrita. Sharing screen. Mm, screen. So, Chuck, I entered the storefront and sitting on a grass mat on the hard floor was a person who seemed at first to be neither male nor female. But when he looked at me, I couldn't even look at him straight in the eyes. They were so brilliant and glistening. His skin was golden with rosy cheeks, and he had large ears that framed his face. He had three strands of beads, one which was at his neck, one a little longer, and the other down on his chest. He had a long forehead which rose above his shining eyes, and there were many furrows in his brow. His arms were slender and long, his mouth was rich and full, and very dark and red and smiling, and his teeth were brighter than his eyes. He sat in a cross legged position that I had never seen before in any yoga book, and had never seen any yogi perform. It was a sitting posture, but his right foot was crossed over the thigh and brought back beside his left hip, and one knee rested on the other directly in front of him. His every expression and gesture was different from those of any other personality I had ever seen, and I sensed that they had meanings that I did not know, from a culture and a mood that were completely beyond this world. There was a mole on his side and a peculiar callus on his ankle, a round callus similar to what a karate expert develops on his knuckle. He was dressed in unhemmed cloth dyed saffron. Everything about him was exotic, and his whole effulgence made him seem to be not even sitting in the room but projected from some other place. He was so brilliant in color that it was like a Technicolor movie, and yet he was right there. I heard him speaking, he was sitting right there before me, yet it seemed that if I reached out to touch him, he wouldn't be there. At the same time, seeing him was not an abstract or subtle experience, but a most intense presence. After their first visit to the storefront, Chuck, Steve, and Bruce each got an opportunity to see the Swami upstairs in his apartment. Steve, I was on my lunch hour and had to be back in the office very soon. I was dressed in a summer business suit. I had planned it so that I had just enough time to go to the storefront and buy some books, then go to lunch and return to work. At the storefront, one of the Swami's followers said that I could go up and see the Swami. I went upstairs to his apartment and found him at his sitting place with a few boys. I must have interrupted what he was saying, but I asked him if I could purchase the three volumes of Srimad Bhagavatam. One of the devotee produced the books from the closet opposite Prabhupada's seat. I handled the books. They were a very special color, not usually seen in America, a reddish natural earth like a brick. And I asked him how much they cost. $6 each, he said. I took $20 out of my wallet and gave it to him. He seemed the only one to ask about the price of the books or give the money to, because none of the others came forward to represent him. They were just sitting back and listening to him speak. These books are commentaries on the scriptures. I asked, trying to show that I knew something about books. Swamiji said yes, they were his commentaries. Sitting smiling at ease, Swamiji was very attractive. He seemed very strong and healthy. When he smiled, all his teeth were beautiful and his nostrils flared aristocratically. His face was full and powerful. He was wearing an Indian cloth robe and he sat cross-legged. His smooth-skinned legs were partly exposed. He wore no shirt, but the upper part of his body was wrapped with an Indian cloth shawl. His limbs were quite slender, but he had a protruding belly. When I saw that Swami was having to personally handle the sale of books, I did not want to bother him. I quickly asked him to please keep the change from my $20. I took the three volumes without any bag or wrapping and was standing, preparing to leave when Swamiji said, "Sit down," and gestures that I should sit opposite him like the others. He had said, "Sit down," in a different tone of voice. It was a heavy tone and indicated that now the sale of books was completed and I should sit with the others and listen to him speak. He was offering me an important invitation to become like one of the others, who I knew spent many hours with him during the day when I was usually at my job and not able to come. I advised their leisure in being able to learn so much from him and sit and talk intimately with him. By ending the sales transaction and asking me to sit, he assumed that I was in need of listening to him. And I had nothing better in the world to do than to stop everything else and hear him. But I was expected back at the office. I didn't want to argue, but I couldn't possibly say, "I'm sorry, I have to go." I said, "Definitely, I'm only on my lunch hour." As I said this, I had already started to move for the door, and Swamiji responded by suddenly breaking into a wide smile and looking very charming and very happy. He seemed to appreciate that I was a working man, a young man on the go. I had not come by simply because I was unemployed and had nowhere to go and nothing to do. Approving of my energetic demeanor, he allowed me to take my leave. Should I stop there, Mataji, or should I continue?
Yeah, you can stop here, Mataji. Thank you.
Okay. So we'll go to the verse. ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायण नमस्कृत्यं नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। नष्टप्रायस्य भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भागवते उत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी। मुख्य नाम पुरस्ताद्वावस्तायापन बहुदानौ विषयो यति पुरारात् रसज्ञ विपानान्वितः। मुख्य नाम पुरस् पुरस्ताद्वास्तायापन बहुदानौ विषयो याति पुरारात् रसज्ञ विपानान्वितः। मुख्य नाम पुरस्ताद्वायस्तायापन बहुदानौ विषयो याति पुरारात् रसज्ञ विपानान्वितः। Anybody would like to recite this verse?
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Dandavat Pranam. I am trying.
Thank you, Mataji.
Mukhya nama purastadvas tayapana bahudanau Vishayau yati purarat rashagna viponan vitaha. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Anybody else would like to try? Okay, we'll go to word translation. Mukhya, the chief, Nama, called, Purastad, on the eastern side, Dwa, gate, Taya, by that, Apana, of the name Apana, Bahudanao, of the name Bahudana, Vishayo, two places, Yati, used to go, Purarat, the king of the city, Puranjana, Rasagna, of the name Rasagna, Vipana, of the name Vipana, Anvitaha, along with. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The fifth gate, situated on the eastern side, was named Mukhya, or the chief. Through this gate, accompanied by his friends named Rasagna and Vipana, he used to visit two places named Bahudana and Apana. And then we have purport. Anybody would like to read this?
Yes,
I'll
Mataji.
try, Mataji.
Okay.
Thank you. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The mouth here is described as the chief or the most important gate. The mouth is a very important entrance because one has two functions to conduct with the mouth. One function is eating, other function is speaking. Our eating is done with the friend Rasagya, the tongue, which can taste so many different types of foods. The tongue is also used for speaking, and it can speak either material sense enjoyment or Vedic knowledge. Of course, here material sense enjoyment is stressed. Therefore, the word Rasagya is used. Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you, Prabhu. It's a very interesting verse. Before that, we'll do the invocation prayers. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmanitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruvai Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dvadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijanasahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते नमो ॐ विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामीति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैता गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. So we'll see the 49th verse today. So in this chapter, you must be seeing the description of the characteristics of the King Puranjana. And in the last few verses, we have been reading about the 9 gates of the city. So in this verse, it is the 5th gate. So the translation says the 5th gate situated on the eastern side was named Mukhya, or the chief. And through this gate, accompanied by his friends named Rasagna, which is tongue, and Vipana, which is voice, he used to visit two places named Bahudana, which is eatables, and Apana, which is speech. So one by one, we will see different senses. So here it is talking about two different senses, which is eatables and speaking. So eating and speaking. So Prabhupada mentioned in the starting of the chapter of Puranjana that why we are learning this, why Narad Muni is explaining all this. So we can learn, because we can learn a lot from these verses and see how we are bound by these senses and how these senses can either degrade us or it can uplift us. So we'll see how to manage or control these senses so it doesn't influence us in a degrading way. So as we are looking at the fifth gate, so it is described as the gate of that city. So the fifth gate, which is called Mukhya, it is the chief gate, and it is also mouth. So it is representing the also the body as mouth, and which is real. So from mouth, because Prabhupada emphasizes this is a chief gate. So because from mouth, there is two senses that is associated with it. And it is very important senses, which is tongue and voice. So now if you see the other senses which we have seen, like eyes, the only part of eyes is the sense of seeing. With ears, it was hearing. But for mouth, there are two. So rasagna, namely tongue, and rasa means you taste the rasa, the flavor, to experience or find out what it is. And we also have another sense, which is speech. So that we do by speaking. So one is, so tongue or the taste is about, so one is jnana indriya. So it is like the sense of taste is meant to acquire knowledge. So by tasting, we experience the world around us as well. So we understand what it is by tasting. It's sour, it's sweet, it's salty. But with speech, it is more of a karma indriya. It is a sense of action. Like with speech, we interact with the world. We do a lot of actions just by speech. So how we communicate is quite important. So we saw 9 gates, and mouth is equals to tongue and voice. It is eatables and speech. So now let's focus on tongue, which is rasagna, and which is the accompanying friend, tongue, and sense object is bahudana, which is eatables, and it comes from the mouth. So if we eat healthy, the food is very important part of everyone's life. If we eat healthy, then we can have good health. Food determines your body. A lot of times it is said you become what you eat. So the food that we eat is not only builds up our gross body, but it also builds our subtle body, which is mind, intelligence, and false ego. So it builds the mind, it builds the intelligence, builds how we think. And therefore, a lot of regulation is required for spiritual advancement just by controlling the tongue, just by controlling what we eat. So let's see what Krishna says about eating. So in Bhagavad Gita, very popular verse, you all be knowing about this, that Krishna says that devotees of the Lord are released from all kinds of sins because they eat food which is offered first for sacrifice. And others who prepare food for personal sense enjoyment very ill eat only sin. So he is giving us clear indication that when you are eating, offer it and make it a prasad. Many times you must have heard that Prabhupada has mentioned that we are in kitchen religion. And some people may just criticize, oh, they're just thinking about eating. But eating is the most important thing. That's how you control your senses. And eating only prasad is an austerity. For some people, it may sound it's very easy. For some people, it may sound it's very difficult because there are lots of restriction of what you can eat, what you can't eat. But to do something continuously throughout the life is an austerity. And that is in mode of goodness because we are doing it consistently. And we know that everything belongs to Krishna. So we should offer it to him before eating. Because we don't just worship by doing all the other services, but eating and cooking is also a part of service. It is because eating is a bodily necessity and we have to eat. But when we offer it to Krishna, when we cook for Krishna with lots of devotion, then we are adding bhakti into our basic necessity of life. And so, what to offer? So, yes, we understand we should be offering, and that's how we bring and control the senses through the tongue. So, Krishna says he wants, we can offer only vegetarian food to him. Why? Because he accepts only patram, pushpam, phalam, toyam. He doesn't say anything about non-vegetarian food. So that's how we understand that we should be eating vegetarian food, but just eating vegetarian food can also be verily eating only sin if it's not offered to Krishna. So that's why we should offer, and then it can nourish our gross body and also our subtle body. And prasad works. Prasad works for our spiritual advancement because slowly and gradually it works on our mind and intelligence and it purifies it, it spiritualizes it. And the second way of controlling the tongue is, of course, chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. So the Krishna is dancing on our tongue when we are chanting. So the next one, so this is the tongue portion, and next one is speech, which is apana. It also is related with mouth, which is the mukhya gate, and the accompanying friend is vipana, which is voice. So it is this sense of speech, and it is more of what we don't reflect on. We just speak what comes to our mind. Of course, with different personalities, but we are mainly speaking without putting a lot of consideration of what we speak and not gives a lot of special attention. So Prabhupada said, if we can control this, then we can control all other senses. So if we can control tongue and speech, then all other senses can be controlled. And because we speak every day, speech is a very important part of life. Just like we eat every day, it is very important part of our life. So speaking is also a very important part of our life. The urge to speak is so strong. Yeah, some people might like to be quiet, and that's great. They don't have that urge to speak, but usually being quiet is not the best thing to do. We'll see that. But it's more of what we speak is the best way of using this speech. So people may find it easier to fast from food from 1 or 2 days, but if we tell them you can't speak for 1 or 2 days, it can become very hard. It becomes that urge is so powerful that it becomes very hard to not speak or be silent for a very long time. there are people who do austerities in this space, like they won't, some people may remain silent for a very long time, and they acquire a lot of siddhis as well, like Vak Siddhi, because they haven't spoken for years together. And then they gain a power as well. Because, of course, if you do any sort of austerity, you get some sort of power. So, but what to note here is what is the importance of such Vak Siddhi? So, Vak Siddhi is very much like that person, whatever that person speaks, doesn't not necessarily that person needs to know the future or may have the astrological knowledge or anything like that, but whatever that person speak can happen. That's what they get, but that is of not much spiritual value. It is just some show of some mundane power. So there is a story like why we should do austerity. We can learn from this. Like there's a story of Jayadratha from Mahabharata. One day he was passing from a jungle with thousands of people going with him. Many soldiers were walking, and in the woods he saw a beautiful woman, and it was Draupadi. He was fascinated by her beauty, and he wanted to kidnap her, but he failed because Pandavas returned and defeated him, and he was brought on knees to King Yudhishthir. King Yudhishthir, being merciful, he gave him warning and left him that you should not do such thing with anybody. But then, and he was left alone. So then Jayadratha felt very insulted, and he was left with revenge. And he said, "No, I want to do something about this." And he wanted to put them down. So then he went to the forest. He performed lots of austerities of eating only leaves. For several months, he performed severe penances, and that included controlling the sense of eating and speaking. And finally, Lord Shiva appeared, and he got a wound that, he asked for a wound that he wanted to kill all Pandavas. But he said, Pandavas can't be killed because they are devotees of Krishna. They are protected by him, so it cannot happen. But because he has a desire to subdue them, what he can give is that we will be able to keep 4 of the Pandavas away or keep them aside one day in a wartime. And similarly, in the case of Ravana as well, we see that he did severe austerities just to become bigger than his brother Kubera. He wanted to gain all power, and that was the main driving force for his austerity. So to take revenge, to apply it for evil purpose, it all remains on the material platform. So what is the use of such kind of austerity? So we need to first come down to understand that what is the goal when we are doing something. So it should lead to Krishna. It should come to Krishna that outcome of any austerity is to please Krishna or to have our own spiritual advancement. So if all of the goal is Krishna, then we are connecting to the Lord, all these austerities, and that will bring us closer to him. So from Krishna conscious point of view, of course, it is better to be silent than not speaking or to speak anything nonsense, but real speech is to speak and recite scriptures. Speak on messages of Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam. So let's see what Krishna says about speech. So in Nectar of Instruction, there's a first verse about Vacho Vegam, and many other Vegams are mentioned there, but there's a lot of emphasis on Vacho, which is the speak. So one cannot become self-realized or accept disciples if they can't curb the urge to speak. And so even in material life, you'll see if people want to become successful, they accept a lot of inconvenience or restrictions So similarly, we must be, if we want spiritual advancement, then we should know how to do some of these austerities for our spiritual development. So Krishna talks about three kinds of austerities, which is the austerity of body, austerity of mind, and austerity of speech in 17th chapter. But we'll focus on speech. But just because he has specifically spoken about these 3 points, we understand that how important speech is while having the austerity of body and mind. So in Bhagavad Gita, we see Arjuna asked, very important question, again related to speech. He says, "O Krishna, what are the symptoms of one whose consciousness is thus merged in transcendence? How does he speak? What is his language?" Again, he asks how he sits and how he walks. But what we understand from this, that a lot of importance have been given that somebody who is in spiritual consciousness, how does he speak and what is his language? There's very important points Prabhupada has mentioned. So I will mention some of those points. Actually, I will read what Prabhupada has mentioned in the purport for this, which is quite interesting. Then, as there are symptoms of each and every man in terms of his particular situation, similarly, one who is Krishna conscious has his particular nature, talking, walking, thinking, feeling. As a rich man has his symptoms by which he is known as a rich man, as a diseased man, he has symptoms by which he is known as a diseased, or as a learned man has a symptom. So a man in transcendental consciousness of Krishna has specific symptoms in various dealings. One can know his specific symptom from the Bhagavad Gita. Most important is how the man in Krishna consciousness speaks. For speech is the most important quality of any man or woman or child, anyone. So it is said that a fool is undiscovered as long as he does not speak. And certainly a well-dressed fool cannot be identified unless he speaks. But as soon as he speaks, he reveals himself at once. So the immediate symptom of Krishna conscious person is that he speaks only of Krishna, of matters related to him. Other symptoms then automatically follows as stated below. That's what Prabhupada mentions. So what we understand that spiritual person can be understood by the symptoms of speech, that how that person speaks and whether that person is spiritual or not spiritual. And Prabhupada has mentioned just by looking at a person, it can be very hard to tell. And we can understand this with an example of Jada. This is an opposite example, actually, because from Bhagavatam. So Jada was not dressed. He was never dressed well. So when King Rahugana saw Jada, he could not understand his exalted position because he judged him from his external dressing. He said, "Oh, this person is not dressed well. Doesn't behave like a cultured man. He's not even talking. Maybe so out of his pride, he assumed that, oh, he must be some fool." And he was not even replying to him. But when Jada Bhagat started speaking, then King Rahugana was spellbound. The kinds of words of spiritual wisdom that came out of his mouth clearly indicate that he was a very advanced spiritual personality. But till the time he didn't speak, King Rahugana could not understand his position. He thought he was a fool because he was judging him from his external appearance. So now in chapter 17, let's see what Krishna talks about, how the speech should be. So the speech should be, the austerity of speech consists in speaking words that are truthful, pleasing, beneficial, and not agitating to others, and also in regularly reciting Vedic scriptures. So Prabhupada says in purport that one should not speak in such a way as to agitate the minds of others. So because should be pleasing to others. But At the same time, a teacher or a parent can speak something that can agitate the student or the child, but it is done for their beneficial, uh, for their benefit, to correct them or to discipline them, but not for anybody else. And one should not talk nonsense, or should be talking related to Vedic literature. And the process of speaking in a spiritual circle is to say something is upheld by the scriptures. So what he is suggesting, that one should at once quote from scriptures authority to back up what we are saying. But at the same time, the speech should be pleasurable to the ears. It should not agitate others. And of course, it should be truthful and others. So we'll see these five elements actually, which is in that verse. So and these elements are just to make one ultimately to speak in such a way that can help one to develop spiritually and make them more attractive to Krishna. Everybody is at different stage of life, and not necessarily we may speak like this every time, but it is just by practice we can become perfect. So first one was anudvega karam vakya, not agitating words. So whatever we speak are not agitating to others. Because sometimes we see that people say words unknowing without thinking much and can hurt others, or sometimes it is said with intention to hurt others, because people are not conscious of what karma they are generating, or they are not conscious or at that time that, oh, we need to be conscious of the austerity of speech. But Krishna says, no, such type of speech is not recommended. Speech should be anutvega karam vakya. That means it should not agitate others. And this is the austerity of speech. And the other aspect is that it should be truthful. It should, then the third one is it should be dear. So our speech should be pleasing. And then it should be hitam. It should be beneficial. So this means one should be well-wishing for others and then speak. What is our intention when we are speaking to someone? And swadhyaya. Swadhyaya is of Vedic study, and abhyasam, the practice. So this indicates the consistency in studying scriptures. So important way how we can mold our speech is to speak according to scriptures. So there is an example which Prabhupada has given, that when a lawyer speaks at a court and he has to prove a point, he quotes the law book with reference. And also he gives examples that, oh, for the previous court hearing in a similar situation, this is what was considered, and this is what has happened. So he brings facts from few examples as well to learn from those examples. So similarly, we should speak in such a way that it aligns with the words of scriptures. Then it is in the mode of goodness. And we can regularly practice the recitation of scriptures to refine that speech. And among these first four or first five, if we look at all five are important, but the important aspect to note is that we must try to make our speech so all five are part of it. But it may not be possible sometimes, because if what I'm saying is truthful, but it is not beneficial or agitating to others, then it may not be considered as austerity of speech. But then under what circumstances it will. So for that, we need to understand the hierarchy, that what aspects to keep first in the mind and what to also cover. But we should try and cover all five aspects. Like in the example of disciplining a child, it may be that it is not pleasing to the child, it could agitate the child, but it is truthful and it is beneficial for the child. So does that mean it is not austerity of speech? So it is in that aspect, because out of all first four, beneficial hitam has given more weightage. So the most important element in that speech is beneficial. It should be beneficial. It is not just about what you say as well. How we say also matter, and why we say is also matter. But why we say is emotive, right? Is whether we want to harm the person, we want to put down the person, defame the person, or help the person. So why is the most important factor. So, and that will bring out the compassion. So sometimes people can speak like spiritual master can chastise out of compassion and become and willing to be a bad cop, but it is just to discipline the disciple. So, but another extreme could be that a person may think, like, if they are not disciplining somebody, they may just think that, or to friends or to anybody, I am speaking to the benefit of that person, and it doesn't matter how I speak. That is another extreme way of thinking. But at the same time, benefit is important, but we should also think how we speak. So good intention to speak for someone benefit is good, but it's not sufficient. So what another fifth one is the most important to combine with the beneficial part, which is this swadhyay, which is this knowledge we get after the swadhyay, the spiritual knowledge. So we may be speaking beneficial to other person, but it is not beneficial to other person if we are not talking about their spiritual benefit. So without giving proper knowledge of scriptures, we cannot benefit others. So when we speak of benefit, then both the good intention and spiritual knowledge must be there. And then it is the hitam of that person. So, but of course, there are other factors that we need to be mindful of, that time, place, where we are, what is the circumstances, what that person is going through, what is the past history, what is the present history, what is the future, what is the consequences of saying something. So all these needs to be considered, of course. But we can understand our speech or austerity of speech and polish it by understanding this, and this way we can learn to interact with others. So in conclusion of today's session, I'll say the gate 5, which we saw, that generates the mouth, that generates two senses, which is tongue and speech. And tongue can be controlled by eating prasadam and chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra. And speech can be controlled by following the 5 elements of the austerity of speech. And also in that 5 elements, the fifth one, which is Swadhyaya, the Hare Krishna Mahamantra chanting and reciting and speaking about scriptures is included. So thank you, everyone. If anybody has any questions or comments or suggestions, please feel free to let me know.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you for the nice analysis of this verse. It's short purport, but you really unpacked it and gave so much replication. Just on regarding speech, it says the speech is Satyanti and Hitam, and also not agitating. So in case somebody get angry, how does a person should control that in terms of this verse? If somebody is very agitated and can speak so many things, it's not in control. So what would you suggest?
To that person. So, did I get your question right? That if somebody is angry and speaking agitating words, then how we should respond?
Oh no, how the person who's angry, how that person should control his anger or comes bounds of this speech, the 14, how the person should control anger.
Oh, okay. All right. So understanding the speech of austerity is one thing, and controlling anger is one thing. As we see, the anger arise from contemplation of the sense object. So the root cause, we need to see the root cause of the anger. So where the frustration is coming from. So if we can stop or have some introspection that where that anger is coming from, because of course anger is part of everybody's day-to-day life, it's part of the human body, but usually anger gets uncontrolled when people's lust or desire is unsatisfied. So it has to go back into why somebody is behaving or is angry in a such a way. Then we need to see, or that person needs to understand, think about it, that oh, got angry, what can be done, uh, what are my buttons and how I can ease out or remove all the buttons in the in so that the mind doesn't get agitated. And the more the person can remain in mode of goodness, as we've spoken about eating and how we can control other senses. So when we eat prasad, automatically we remain more in mode of goodness. So anger arises more in a mode of passion or ignorance. So when person is in passion, the desire is higher and higher, and that turns into the unfulfilled desires turns into frustration, and then it will become as an anger. So if we are controlling our tongue by eating and chanting, eating prasad, chanting and reciting in the scriptures, and the more and more we can dwell our life in making sure we are more in mode of goodness or sattva guna, then hopefully that anger can be controlled. And of course, prasad can give us intelligence that.
Thank you,
Sorry,
Mataji.
Praviti, I can't say.
No, thank you. I mean, that's a good response. And what about the person who is being receiving this angry speech? How that person should respond? Maybe that's also important.
Yes. So receiving end is difficult because it happens like mode of ignorance drags the mode of ignorance. So it is like when somebody is angry, we get angry, and anger sort of works because mode of ignorance is more powerful sometimes in influencing people, and of course people's false egos are not very purified that one can tolerate. But as we see that we should be able to tolerate and bear the insults, uh, and that gives a sense of power. But no response sometimes works better than actually responding to that angry situation. Sometimes it is best to speak to the person when the things have cooled down. So I would just suggest to walk away from there or have no response or not engage in that argument situation.
Thank you, Mataji, for the response. That's more practical to walk away, let the thing cool down, and maybe then we can talk more sense. Otherwise, in a very agitated atmosphere, it's very difficult to have any reason or logic. Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you, Pravati.
Hare Krishna Mataji, regarding this one, if we do act more, that your karma also increase, means who is telling something in wrong way to me, and if I, again go back and tell again roughly, also my karma will increase. Isn't it better to walk away? Or
Yes.
quiet? Or keep quiet and take it easy, like this way?
Usually it's good to respond. It is good to respond, but in an assertive way. We can respond in a way which is not agitating, but we can mention and stand up for ourselves, which takes practice. It is not very easy. but it should not be. I know, and we need to be humble, but humility doesn't means thinking less about yourself, thinking low about yourself. It is thinking less about yourself. So we when we think low about ourselves, we may feel suppressed, but it is good to think less about ourselves, that oh, okay, that person is in angry mood, what would be the situation, and then okay, when that person's cool down, we can respond to it. And when we respond to it in a mode of goodness way, then of course we will not get a negative karmic reaction. But if we also respond in a mode of ignorance way, then we are generating more and more karmic reactions, negative karmic reactions in our balance. So it's just that practicing to live in that state where we are mindful of the karmas we are generating and mindful of our spiritual advancement.
Mhm. Yeah, it's fine. But those who are in the, that like your work culture, those who are the boss, if they say something, if we cannot convince those who are the lower position, isn't it? They think they are always right.
Yes, it has happened to me many times as well. Being sometimes there are lots of people who have been into work experience of 20-30 years. And if you are in a similar position and people can't take it, then they do want to put you down, and some of the meetings could get in an attack mode. But the best way is to respond as per the facts. So I basically respond as per the facts, and rather than attacking back. So I go more in defensive mode. Sometimes we just deny that person's what that person is feeling. But when we validate that person's feelings, and then at the same time also explain our point, that is more powerful in those situations.
Yeah, right. Mhm. Yeah, it's more logical. Thank you.
I just like to give a practical example, and I just want to know how people on this forum respond. And during the Holi festival, we were manning the booth, prasadam booth, where we are selling watermelon, water, lassi, etc. And one person, it was a long queue, and one person broke the queue. And he came in the front, and the guy who was in the front got very angry. And they were just coming up to blows. And I was like a witness. I was trying to say, cool down, cool down. But the emotion was so high, it was very difficult. And how would you respond as, as a third party, like a devotee witnessing this scenario? Anybody with some ideas? Because it just happened instantly. The guy who broke the queue, he came
Yes.
forward, and this guy was extremely angry. And the guy won't go back. And he's just arguing just in front of the cashier. And I was right in the middle. And I was trying to calm down. Hey, guys, cool down, nothing to do. But they were just about to come to blows.
Correct.
So, I mean, this is an extreme example. I mean, how would people respond in this situation?
In that example, what I would do, I understand from scriptures that if a devotee is being humiliated, or, if devotee is attacked, the other devotee should also take side of the devotees. So we should come and stand up. So that is correct, but we don't, like if that person is in angry mood, swear, we won't swear back. But it
Oh,
may
this way,
happen in a
this
mode
way,
of
no
ignorance
devotees. I
as
mean,
well,
they were
and
normal
mode of
The
people.
echo is coming, Mataji.
They were not devotees. They were just coming to have a good time in the Holy Color Festival. And they
Yes,
were in the line. The devotees were doing the serving, and they were
correct.
in the midst. So I found myself a very precarious position. I say, hey, cool down, but they are just, the tempers were flying so high, but very difficult to control.
So
So in the end,
that,
we end up calling the police, and then the police call them up and just calm them down.
correct. Yeah. And that's the right thing you did, approach. Of course, you are quite senior and you know how to handle this. But from my perspective, if you ask me, it is more of there's a lot of echo coming. Maybe you might need to mute yourself, Prabhuji, when
There is a lot of ego, but with the materialist and non-devotee, it's very hard for them to admit
Yes.
somebody is breaking a rule and he should go back. He's in a hurry and just want to save some time breaking the queue. It's just like India. Nothing new to break a queue, but here in Israel, people take it very seriously. so,
Correct.
so it's very difficult situation.
Yeah, and that's exactly we need to be assertive. We need to say the right things, and that is not wrong. That's why we said it's initiative for beneficial, for their hitam only. We're disciplining them.
Yeah.
In this perspective, I have seen in my hospital, those who are the angry visitor, we try to give them fast to come in trance. Okay, sometimes they told, "Oh, I would like to see the patient," but we allow to come in. Otherwise, they make the disasters. So we give them chance.
But that won't be fair to people who have come before, waiting in the queue.
Exactly. Yeah.
But sometimes
Right.
people doesn't want to listen what to do.
Yeah, I saw in hospital all the doctors big, so you can, staff shouldn't be abused, and will take stern action. Somebody abuses the staff, but it can happen. Yeah. Yeah, for the devotees, it's easy to understand the
Yes,
virtual diagram control. For the non-devotees, they haven't come across this verse or this type of perspective, and for them, it's very difficult.
Yes, and they can insult us as well. So what you're saying is a quite unfortunate situation, Prabhuji.
Okay, thank you. Anybody
That
else
is
want to comment? Okay, thank you, Madhji, for a very nice class. We'll end here.
कल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः अनंत कोटि विष्णु वृंद की
जय
आर ग्रेस अनंगलता माता जी की
जय
शिला प्रभुपाद की जय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल ऑल ग्लोरीज टू assembled devotees हरे कृष्णा
हरे कृष्णा